Hello students, hope you are doing well. So in this lecture we'll be discussing a very important concept of object oriented programming, that is the concept of inheritance in C++. Okay, so as far we have discussed the concept of classes, objects, abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism. Okay, so these are some important concepts, or you can see the features of any object oriented programming. And the next feature is the inheritance. So as its name suggests, it says inherit. It means to take something. So for example, if I take a small example, a real life example, a child, a child inherits some properties from its parents. So what does it means? It means that every child contains some features or some properties of the ancestors. So we know that a human body consists of a DNA, and a DNA contains some attributes of your ancestors also. So it is a lineage, you can say, from which clan you belong. So if we can say, if a child contains some properties, so these properties, we can say the properties are known as the old properties. So there are some properties that are known as the old properties. And there are some properties that are known as new properties. So we will be discussing what are these old properties and what are the new properties. So this is a simple example, a layman example to understand that what exactly inheritance means. So old property means the properties of the ancestors or the properties of okay of parents, you can say. So these are the parents, the parents properties, the features. For example, some of the, you can say, some child has the features, like the nose of a child has a similar you can say resemblance to its mother. Or it can also have that the hair of a child has some resemblance to its father, or you can say the height of a child is, you can say, same as that of his father, and so on. So there are some properties, there are some characteristics. There are some diseases also. For example, a father contains a disease for a diabetes, for example. So there are some diseases also. So for example, if anyone of the parent is having a disease, for example, you can say diabetes. You can say a disease known as diabetes. So this disease will also be inherited by the child. So there is a maximum probability that this diabetes will be inherited from the parent to its child. So this is the property that the child is inheriting from its parent. And new properties means that there are certain new features that the child will contain. So these features or these new properties belongs to the child itself. These properties are not being taken from its parents. So there are, you can take any example. You can say the intellect, you can say the intellect of a child. The mind of a child. The brain of a child. So these are the thinking mechanism of a child. So these are the properties that the child contains of its own. So inheritance means taking certain things from your ancestors, some properties, some functions from your ancestors, and also you are having these properties, some new properties in itself. So this is a basic example. So you can see in technical term, if I just take an example. So let's take an example. Let's consider a class. So we know that a class contains some attributes. A class contains some attributes and some, you can say, functions. Or you can say behaviors. These functions are also known as the behaviors. So these behavior will work upon these attributes. These attributes means the variables. Attributes are the variables that we declare inside a class, because a class is a specification. It is an, specification for an object. Okay, an object contains all these attributes, all these properties of a class. Okay, and we will assign certain values to these properties. Okay, so certain values will be assigned. Okay, certain values will be assigned to these variables. Okay, that are known as the properties of a class. So all these terms are same. Okay, so these properties are also known as the attributes, are also known as the variables. Okay, and functions are the, you can say, the blocks or the actions or the behaviors that will work upon these attributes or on these properties on all on these variables. Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, for example, it is a class that is known as a plane. Okay, a plane is a class. Okay, this is an aeroplane, a basic plane. Okay, so this class contains, okay, this class plane contains some attributes. Okay, so it contains some attributes as well as some methods. Okay, so every class, okay, contains attributes and methods. Okay, every class in object oriented paradigm must contain attributes and methods. Okay, this is the definition of a class. So the attributes can be, okay, you can say it can be the size of a plane. Okay, it can be a color of a plane. Okay, it can be a cost of a plane. Okay, you can say navigation system in a plane, and so on. Okay, and so on. These are the attributes. And for all these attributes, okay, there are certain methods that has been created by the user. Okay, so it is the responsibility of the user to create the methods for these attributes so that these attributes can be accessed. Okay, so that access mechanism can be there in order to access all these attributes. So there are certain methods which are useful, okay, which has to be created by the user in order to access these attributes. Okay, so for example, to access the size, there is a method, okay, get size. Okay, so I am just taking an example, okay, for your understanding. So for, okay, for taking color, you can have get color. Okay, so you can just take get size, set size. Okay, there are different methods you can take. Okay, set color. Okay, for set and get. So there is a cost, so get cost. Okay, set cost. And navigation, okay, get navigation and set navigation. So these are the, you can say, attributes, okay, on which these functions will work upon. Okay, so what if, okay, if I want to create, okay, a new class that is known as a fighter plane class. Okay, so now I am more interested in creating, okay, a new class that is known as a fighter plane, okay, class. Okay, so this fighter plane class is a class, okay, that will also contain, okay, this much information in itself. Okay, so you can say that this fighter plane class will also have the attributes like the size, because fighter plane also has some size. Okay, it is also having some color, it is also having some cost, and it is also having some navigation system. Okay, you can take any example of fighter plane. Okay, either it can be Sukhoi, okay, either it can be MiG or Rafale, anything. Okay, this is just an example, I am just, okay, demonstrating. So if I just want to say that if there is a class fighter plane, then this fighter plane is a modification. Okay, this fighter plane is a modification, okay, of original class, of original class. So what is our original class? The original class is the class plane. This is the original class. Okay, this is the original class, that is the plane class. And what I need to have a class that is named as a fighter plane class, that is a modification of the original class, that is plane class. But this fighter plane class will also contain some attributes, okay, that are common in the plane class, that is size, color, cost, and navigation. Okay, because every fighter plane is having this much information in itself. Okay, this is mandatory. But okay, if I say that this is a modification of an original class, so it must contain some extra features also. it must contain some essential attributes also that is not present in the plane class. Okay, so the extra features can be armaments. Okay, so these are the, you can say different types of payloads, okay, that the fighter plane is carrying. Okay, different types of missiles and all sort of things. Okay, so these all contains, okay, these all type of things will fall in the category of armaments. And these armaments are not present in a simple plane, because in a normal plane we don't have this type of facility of taking some payloads that contains, okay, missiles and all type of. And let's suppose the second is some stealth mechanism. Okay, so this is an advanced, okay, security feature, okay, that has been incorporated in this fighter plane. Okay, or you can say air to air, okay, air to air refueling mechanism. Okay, so now in the modern air fighting crafts, there is this type of mechanism, that is air to air refueling mechanism, so that if in war this type of situation will occur, so a buddy plane will be there, that is that can refuel the, okay, main, you can say the main plane, okay, that is the main fighter plane. Okay, so now these are the three attributes. So now this is the armaments, okay, that is the payload carrying capacity, okay, for example missiles and all. Stealth mechanism, okay, that is, okay, a mechanism so that, okay, the you can say fighter plane, okay, should not be detected by the enemy radars. Okay, so you can say the interception is as low as possible. Okay, interception is as low as possible. Okay, so the radars of the enemy should not be able to, you can say, trace the particular aircraft, okay, or the jet fighter plane. So these are some mechanisms that our fighter plane must contain. Okay, so these are some modifications over the original aircraft or the original plane. So for these three attributes, okay, so for these three attributes, again we have to create some functions. Okay, again we have to create some functions. Okay, so for example, get armaments, okay, get armaments oblique set armaments. Okay, for this stealth mechanism, again we have to create, okay, a method get stealth, okay, and set stealth, and so on. Okay, for this air to air refueling capacity, okay, again we have to create some methods. So yeah, now you can see that now we have increased. Okay, so if I want to, you can say, if I want to say that I want fighter plane class, okay, I want fighter plane class in a program, so what I have to do, I have to use these 4 attributes, okay, and these 8 methods, and for these 4 attributes again I have to and some new attributes also. Okay, so some new attributes will also be now, okay, introduced, like the armaments, stealth mechanism, and air to air refueling capacity. And for all these attributes we have to create the corresponding functions also. So now the attribute size has been increased, and also the functions or the behaviors or the actions have been increased. So what if, okay, if I want to say that I want to use fighter plane class. So if I want to use fighter plane class, then I have to use all these 7 attributes. Okay, I have to use all these 7 attributes and all these methods corresponding to these 7 attributes. So for each attribute there are 2 methods, for example, so there must be 14 methods. Okay, there must be 14 methods and 7 attributes, okay, in our fighter plane class. But this will create a problem that the original plane class, okay, if I want to access the original plane class, then the existence of this original plane class will be no more. Okay, because now we have converted this plane class into a you can say fighter plane class. Okay, because now we have taken all the 7 attributes and all the 14 methods. Okay, but in our original plane class, okay, there were only 4 attributes and 7 methods. Okay, but here we have introduced 3 methods again. Sorry, we have introduced 3 attributes again and 7 methods corresponding to these particular attributes. So you can say that now the existence, okay, now the existence of plane class is no more, because now there is no plane class, only there is a fighter plane class. So this is also a problem, because we are not in a position to access the existing plane class. Okay, so for this, okay, there is the C++ programmers, okay, created something, some new concepts, and they think that what if I create, okay, 2 different classes. Okay, so they just created 2 different classes. So one is class plane, okay, and this class plane contains, okay, these attributes and some methods, and there is again they created a class, you can say fighter plane. Okay, again a class fighter plane they created, and these fighter plane class, okay, also contains, okay, the attributes, okay, and the methods. Okay, but okay, the problem was that the fighter plane class contains only those attributes that were not present in the class plane. Okay, only those attributes were created in fighter plane class that were not present in plane class. Okay, so only 3 attributes were created in fighter plane class and 4 attributes were created in plane class. Okay, but the problem is, okay, when we have to access, okay, when we have to access the fighter plane class, when we have to access the fighter plane class, then we have to create 2 different objects. Okay, we have to create 2 different objects, one object of plane class and one object of fighter plane class. Okay, we have to create 2 objects, one object of plane class and another object of fighter plane class. Why we have to create 2 objects? Because, okay, plane class object will contain, okay, this is the plane class object, for example, and this is the fighter plane class object. Okay, this is the fighter plane. Okay, so now the plane class object will contains 4 attributes, okay, that we have created. Okay, that is the cost, size, okay, color and the capacity. Okay, for example, and the fighter plane will contain the 3 attributes, that is the armaments, okay, the refueling capacity and the stealth mechanism. Okay, but the fighter plane class, okay, can also access, okay, can also access the attributes like cost, can also access the attributes like size, can also access the attributes like navigation, can also access the attributes like, you can say, engine. Okay, because these 4 attributes are also present in fighter plane, but here in this object of the fighter plane these attributes are absent. So in order to access these objects, okay, sorry, in order to access these variables, they have to be dependent on the object of the plane class. So if this is the case, then this is a flaw, you can say this is a flaw of object oriented programming. Okay, because object oriented programming says that this type of situation should not occur in any object oriented programming concept. Okay, so if we are trying to do this type of thing, then it can be considered, okay, you can say, as an error. Okay, it can be considered as an error in object oriented mechanism. So it is violating the concept of, violating the very important concept of object oriented programming, that is encapsulation. Okay, that you have to remember. Okay, so this is how, okay, we are, okay, the C++ programmers, okay, you can say, proceeds. Okay, they proceed that how to resolve this type of problem if it occurs in our program. Okay, so there should be some solution, because we can't write the same code again and again. Because if we create a class plain and we create 4 variables of this plain class, and again we just create a class fighter plain, and again we create 4 plus 3 7 variables, then we are doing some extra work. Okay, and we are doing some extra work, and we can say we are not utilizing, okay, the resources. Okay, we are not using the reusability concept. Okay, we are just, you can say we are just wasting our time, wasting our you can say wasting our resources, and we are creating, okay, the, you can say, program in a more complex manner. Okay, so we have to reduce this type of complexity so that debugging can be easier. So now the concept of inheritance comes into picture. So now what the C++, okay, community, okay, did, or you can say C++ programmers suggest, they suggest there should be some relation or some bridge between the two classes. Okay, so if you can say this is a class that is a plain class, and this is a class that is a fighter plain class. Okay, this is a fighter plane class, then there must be some link or some bridge, okay, between these classes. Okay, there must be some relation that needs to be established between these two classes, so that this type of, okay, the problem that we are getting must be resolved, so that the encapsulation problem must be resolved. Okay, so here this link is known as the inheritance concept. Okay, so now what is being done? Okay, so now with the help of this inheritance, okay, now there is a class, okay, you can say plain, that contains, okay, 1 2 3 4 attributes and certain methods, and again there is a class that is, okay, that is fighter plane. Okay, that is fighter plane. So this fighter plane now contains only those attributes that are not present in the plane class. Okay, and only those functions that are not present in the plane class. Okay, so this is common to both, okay, for the attributes as well as for the methods. Okay, both. So now there must be some relation, so that now the property of encapsulation must be preserved. The property of encapsulation must be preserved. So now only single object must be created. Okay, so with the help of this link, when this link is being created, that is the inheritance is being introduced between these two classes, so now there must be a single object that needs to be created, and this single object corresponds to the object of the fighter plane class. Okay, so the fighter plane class objects needs to be created only, and this will contains, okay, this contains these 4 attributes of the base class, as well as the 3 new attributes that has been created in the fighter plane class. Okay, so you can see now only single object is there, and this single object is binding all the attributes and all the functions together, and the property of encapsulation is being maintained. And the property, okay, that is very important, because encapsulation is to be maintained. Okay, and in order to, you can say, preserve the encapsulation, inheritance was introduced by the C++ programmers to reuse the, you can say, the variables, or to, you can say, reuse the resources to increase the reusability. The property of inheritance was introduced. Okay, so the now here the property of encapsulation, okay, the property of encapsulation is preserved. Okay, because we can't change the existing definition of, okay, the object oriented programming. We have to keep, okay, we have to keep these things in mind, that we can't change the basic fundamentals of any language, because this is the way this language has been designed. Okay, so now this is very much clear. Okay, so now I hope now you have an idea that why this inheritance comes into picture. Okay, so the first is to, okay, to invoke reusability in our code. Okay, to invoke reusability, it means that to reuse again and again the components that has been defined, that has been created, okay, in the parent class or that has been created. Okay, and second is to, you can say, preserve encapsulation. Okay, third is code maintenance. Okay, code maintenance is easy. Code maintenance is easy. Fourth is debugging is easy, because now you are separating, okay, the fighter plane class with the plane class. So if there is any problem in the fighter plane class, then you are only debugging that particular module only. Okay, so these are some mechanisms, these are some advantages of inheritance. Okay, reusability is very important. Okay, to invoke reusability, inheritance comes into the picture. It has been created by the C++ programmers.